Hello, this is the walkthrough video for my 2016 Forest River Sunseeker 2290S. We're going to go ahead and start with the exterior on this thing and work our way to the inside. After watching the video, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at any time, and I'll be happy to answer those questions for you. I do apologize for my video quality. I'm filming myself and mostly going for being informative, not necessarily professional. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with the first compartment here. This was pretty obvious. It's labeled propane. You'll notice that our propane tank, even though it's completely full, is reading between 3/4 and full. So when you return it and it's not reading perfectly full, we'll know that that's perfectly fine and that's where it should be. The gauge on the interior does work properly. The capacity on this tank is 12.2 gallons. That's typically more than enough to last a couple weeks, even with running the furnace. So for most people, that'll be a one-time fill. We do have a cable hookup for cable TV. We do have the accessory plug here for any outdoor accessories you'd want to plug in, as well as any 120 volt, 20 amp connectors that you'd like to plug in as well. Furnace outlets right here. So that gets kind of hot, so you want to be careful not to bump into that when the furnace is running. This is your refrigerator outlet. It's perfectly normal to have a little bit of moisture dripping out of the condensation tube on this guy. Also, these do run on propane most of the time, so having some exhaust come out of here is typically normal as well. Something I do like to point out is not to lean anything up against the motorhome, mostly because if there's any kind of wind or any shaking motion or anyone going in and out of the motorhome, whatever you've leaned up against here will sit here and it'll scratch up the motorhome and actually cause quite a bit of damage really quick. And that is something that would be extremely hard to have insurance cover because it was negligence. So please don't lean anything up against the motorhomes. This right here is your freshwater tank fill. We'll typically give you these full of water, but if you read these warnings here, specifically following proper care, maintenance, a failure to maintain tank may result in death or serious injury. Just because of that, I do not recommend drinking or consuming the water that are in these tanks. For me, this is basically just for doing dishes and showering and washing hands. If you want to drink water or if you want to cook, you're better off using bottled water. That is personal opinion, but it's not worth the risk. Hot water heater is controlled from the inside. This is the exhaust. You'll see it says hot. So again, you want to make sure you don't lean up against that on accident while it's running. This compartment down here has your freshwater hose there. Has a jack, has a tire iron, water pump on the left, water filter on the right. Mostly that stuff's there for maintenance and winterizing, so don't have to worry about that. This is the first access to the storage compartment. You'll see in there we have some camping chairs. Typically we'll have 4 in there. Got some emergency roadside triangles. And on the other side there, I'll get you a better view here. In the blue box you'll have the leveling blocks and the power cord for plugging in the camper. There's 3 ways to access this thing. You've got this rear access here as well. And then you've got this other side access here. There's your box full of leveling blocks, and here's the cord. This is the end that you'd plug in at the 30 amp for the campground. If you only have a 20 amp, then this is the adapter that plugs in here and then plugs into a regular power cord. So one of the things that's a little different on this camper or motorhome is it's more like a camper in the aspect that the power cord is separate, plugs into here, Has a lock ring that you can screw on once you've got it in place, and then you can plug the motorhome in. Spare tire is located right there. Nice new tread on it, so if you need it, it's there. We also have another park cable connection right here, depending on where your access is, if you want it. This motorhome has two hose connections that are identical, but do very different functions. This one in the back here, this is a city water connection. So if you're at a campground and you hook the hose up to this, it'll bypass your freshwater tank and run directly off the hose. And if you hook it up to here, this will fill the black tank full of water. It's for flushing out the black water. So don't use that one unless you really want to flush my tanks out for me. And if you do, that's great. This compartment down here, I guess I should point out that all these have these little things to hold up the doors for you so you don't hit your head. You just got to make sure that when you want to close it that you unhook them so you don't break them. But this is your dump station. With this guy, you unscrew the bottom plate, take this little cap off, take one of these hoses here with the lock ring in, come up through the bottom, underneath here, through the hole, and clip it on here instead of the cap. And there's always a big one and a small one. You can see from the side here that it's a smaller valve, not the handle, but the valve itself is smaller. The big one's always your toilet. That's the one you want to do first. You pull the lever straight out and it'll dump all your toilet waste. Once that's done, you push the lever straight back in and you go to this valve. This valve contains your sink water and your shower water and anything that's, you know, relatively clean. So when you pull that guy out, it'll kind of rinse everything out, so it's not as gross when you put it all back together. The gloves are going to be in here. We either have disposables or reusable, you know, elbow-high rubber gloves. One of the two. They were nice enough to throw a light switch on here. Not that that's particularly useful in the summertime in Alaska, but it's there. Regular unleaded fuel, whatever's inexpensive. Let's see, got a couple compartments here that will show you. This one here, you can store things in. It's got your subwoofer for your entertainment center. It's also got the seat belts. You see that sometimes they fall down below the seats, and you can shove them back up through the bottom there if you need to get them back up. This compartment below here, this is just an open compartment, typically good for putting boots and, you know, somewhat dirty things, firewood, that sort of thing that you'd want to have stored. Next compartment here, this is your generator. This is all controlled from the inside, so you don't have to worry about this guy on the outside here. You got your muffler or your exhaust pipe for the generator. When you run the generator, you do want to make sure this window is closed so the exhaust is not coming into your vehicle and putting carbon monoxide into the vehicle. Grab the keys out of here so you don't have to listen to that beeping noise. A couple things here. On the side of the seat, you do have an emergency battery switch. And what that does is if you were to have drained the battery on the camper or on the vehicle side of things, you can press and hold that button down there and it will jump start using the camper battery. So that's kind of handy, or can be kind of handy sometimes. To run the slide out on here, you do have to use the parking brake. This is where the parking brake release is. So that's where that guy's hiding. We do have a tire pressure monitor system here as well. And you can see that you have the pressure in white and the temperature in yellow there. Your pressure is going to range between 60 and 80 psi, depending on your elevation and your temperature. So you'll notice that some of these, yeah, they're all a little bit different, and that's perfectly normal. They're never all going to be the same, or very rarely will all be the same. So you got a power button up here. You can turn that on and off when you want. It does charge using solar power. There is a trailer brake installed on this camper. If you plan to tow something, please contact me ahead of time. That needs to be pre-authorized. The radio here is also the DVD player for the vehicle. And in order to use that, the parking brake does need to be set, and it does need to be in park. That is a safety feature that I am not going to disable. I'm going to leave it that way, but that is the way it functions. That basically means that when you want to watch the TV, you can't do it when in motion. That is to prevent distraction to the driver. This is also equipped with a backup camera. When you put the vehicle in reverse, the backup camera will automatically engage. And as you can see right now, it's kind of pointed down a little bit more so that you can see your parking space a little better. The rear camera is adjustable, so if you want to use it as a backup camera, or not a backup camera, but a rear view mirror, you can just manually turn it on, and then you can tilt your camera up a little bit so you can see what's behind you while you're driving as well. So whatever preference you have there is good. I leave it on this setting here because I'm more concerned about people backing up than being able to watch the scenery go by behind them. Let's see, other than that, you know, you got your little electrical plugins right here. This is just a blank, that's just a blank, don't worry about those guys. Radio itself is a Bluetooth as well, so you can connect to your phone with the Bluetooth. Does have the microphone up there so you can use it to talk on the phone. Not sure how well that works, to be honest with you, I haven't tried it. Other than that, the cab's a normal cab, nothing really special that way. Go ahead and get over to the other side here and we'll show you the electric awning that this thing has. The electric awning's kind of nice. There's no locks or anything like that. So in order to use the awning, you got a switch right here that says awning in and awning out. So you press and hold awning out, and the awning goes out. I do that last little part to get the little valence to flop out on the top there. So a couple of misconceptions about these awnings. They're not for rain, really. Light rain's fine if you keep a close eye on it. Any kind of heavy rain, you're going to start to get a bulge and a buildup of pressure from the water, and that can add up quite fast when it rains here. If you're going to have it out when it's raining, it's really important that you loosen one of these up on one side and shorten it. Sorry for shaking the phone, but you know, one hand here. What that does is it gives you a nice steep angle here so that your rain won't pool up. It'll actually run out and off. Just a fair warning, awning fabric damage, a generic fabric, if we're lucky, we can pick up for about $600 to $800, and it takes about 3 hours to install it, which is about $300. So it's really easy to cause a lot of damage to an awning. So just kind of be aware if you're going to use it. Make sure that you're paying attention to what's going on, and that if it gets windy, that you put it back into a safe position before the wind can do damage to it too. Because if you get into arm damage here and stuff like that, these very rapidly approach the $4,000 range. To go back in, simply press the in button and it will roll up. Please be careful not to roll it in backwards by using the out button, because they do not store properly and the wind can catch it and cause some damage there too. So that's that guy there. You got your main battery on-off switch right here, as well as the porch light, which is that guy right there. Definitely doesn't do any good in Alaska in the summertime. You have your awning light, which does this strip light right there, which is actually pretty nice when it gets later in the season. And you've got your living room light, which is that guy right there. To the right of the door you have your fire extinguisher. And right here you have your screen door release so that you can use your screen door. It also has the bug guard protection, which in this motorhome can actually always stay in the closed position because it's got a lever on this side and it's got a lever over here on this side, which is really nice. So that can always be closed. I guess I'm kind of lying there, because if you want to get to the handle here, you actually do have to slide it out of the way. So I guess that explains that. Just noticed that the screw was loose on this door here, which actually is a good reminder that motorhomes are constantly shaking themselves apart. So if you happen to notice anything like this, please let me know. I try to keep on top of them, but like I said, new stuff rattles apart every trip. So easy to put back together. The doors on the motorhomes, you don't have to slam them. Simply push them shut. They will shut. Slamming them can cause damage to the latches. The latches are about $150 to $200 a piece, plus about half an hour to install them as well. On the inside here, the main thing to show is the control unit right here. This is your readout for the levels on things. I'm going to close the door. There's mosquitoes out here and my videos are shaky enough without me having to try to swat mosquitoes. But you can press the gray button. That'll show you that your gray tank is empty. You can press your black, which will show your black tank status, which is really hard to trust. Mostly because toilet paper gets stuck on the sensors and causes them to misread. The best way to check your black tank is to flush it and look down the tank. Fresh water, full. Battery level, full. Propane level, like I said, even though the outside said 3/4, this does read properly at full. You do have an electric water heater and a gas water heater. Same water heater, two different functions. When you turn the gas on, which is probably the better way to run these things anyway, unless you're at a campground, it'll light in a couple of seconds. If it doesn't light for whatever reason, the fault light will light up. If that happens, the first thing you want to do is check your tank and make sure your tank valve is turned on. They should always be in the on position, but sometimes when you go get them filled, they'll shut them off and not turn them back on. It takes about 15 minutes to get hot water. It's only about 6 gallons worth, so do got to be conservative when showering. Water pump, I always leave in the on position. That way, if you're not using water and you hear the pump run every once in a while, it tells me that there's a leak somewhere, and then we need to find a leak before we cause some water damage. Living room light, again, is that light there. Kitchen light, I'm guessing might be that one. No, I'll be honest, not sure which one that goes to. It goes to a light somewhere. So, generator, push start here. Fires up. We'll give you a readout on your generator hours. That's actually 296.6, not 2,966. The generator is going to run your air conditioner. That's going to run your microwave. And that's going to run your TV. It takes about that long for it to actually switch itself over automatically, but now it's running the power, and the generator will power everything. You know, even your lights that are 12 volt, it'll switch over to that. It'll also charge your batteries for you, and not only your camper battery, but your truck battery as well. So that's kind of a handy function as well. One thing to note here is that this radio runs off of the camper battery, not the truck battery. So when you shut the truck off and you want to have the radio off so it's not burning up the battery, you got to press and hold that round power button until it actually shuts off if you want it to be in the off position. To shut the generator off, you press the stop button. Now the reason it says stop/prime is because the generator runs off of the fuel tank the truck runs off of as well, until the truck gets down to about 1/4 of a tank of fuel, and then the fuel for the generator can no longer pick up. If you were to run the generator at that point, and even sometimes if you don't, the fuel will bleed off from the generator into the gas tank, and you'll have air in your generator fuel line. When that happens, you press and hold the prime button until the light lights up, and then you count to 10, and that should reprime your carburetor. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 tries to get it to actually get the air out of it. Not a big deal, just something to be aware of. So for your slide out, like we said, in order for this guy to work, your parking brake needs to be set. Engine needs to be in the off position. Again, if it doesn't work the first time, open the driver's door, close the driver's door. That should be enough to tell the computer that it's actually off. Your in-out button is right here, so you can press out. And your slide out will go out. You want to make sure that there's nothing behind the trim there, because that will cause damage. When it's all the way out, it will stop, and you'll know that it's in the right position there. As you can see, it opens up the floor plan quite a bit in here, which makes it really nice. This is one of my favorite layouts on my motorhomes. I've got about 4 of them that are similar to this in layout. You have your TV here. The TV stand has 2 lock knobs right here. You do need to release them, and a handle here to grab. Please don't grab the TV, as the TVs will break if you pull on them too much. And then you can swing out the arm right here, or push the thing back in, so that you have a TV out here that you can actually view as well. You do have your privacy curtains up here. You'll notice that there's no skylight in the upper bedroom, which is a wonderful function. Your fold out here just folds down into position here to make the bed. It does have ladder rung locks right here. The ladder is located right here to the right. You'll notice that we have it with the hooks facing out. It's far enough away from the door that you will not snag yourself on it, but if you have them turned around the other way, they will sit on here and they will rip this fabric up really fast. So please make sure that you put them with the hooks facing out. I'll show you what that looks like when we have it hooked up here. There we go. And then you have a ladder to get to the upper bunk there. Climbing does cause damage on these. Stepping on the headrests will bend the metal frame inside of these in weird directions, and that's definitely something we'd like to avoid. So to unhook it, you just unhook it. Again, make sure that the ladder is facing out like that, so it's not going to cause any damage. And then you snap it back into place like that, and you're good for traveling. I do have seat belts around here. I believe you have 4 of them. You have 1 here, 2 here, 1 here. This is really a 6-man RV. You got 2 buckles here, 4 buckles here. I'm not going to say that you can't put more than 6 people in here, just that it would be technically illegal, because you do have to be buckled in a motorhome, and it might be a little cramped, but I'm not one for telling people what they can or cannot do, so but I will not be liable for it. Your sink here functions like a perfectly normal sink, just regular on-off. And you got your drain plugs that are really jammed in there right now, and I'm going to have to try digging out with a pair of pliers because I can't get it with my hand. Yep, that's interesting. Okay, well, we'll get back to that. So, anyway, you flip that thing over and it's a drain. Apparently putting it like this as a strainer is not the best idea. So, we do have shades in all the windows. Screens on motorhomes, it's important that you don't drive with the windows open with the screens in place. Not necessarily for that guy there, but mostly this one here, the one in the bedroom. We lose a lot of screens because they get sucked out. They're very hard to find, and they're very difficult to get replaced, and they're actually kind of expensive if you have somebody make one for you. So just a heads up there. This guy does turn into a bed. It's got a lock lever right there that you unscrew, and it comes out of the floor really easy. You lift the benches up, and you can set the table down here on these ledges, and then rearrange the seat cushions to make a bed. This is actually a little over, I think, 6'6", so an adult can actually lay in here, and it's deep enough that it's actually a pretty comfortable bed for what it is. So if you do need to use it, it's pretty good. Again, we have shades in here as well. Just pull down, push back up. Each of the windows have locks right here to lock the windows. So make sure those are in the lock position if you want them locked. The stovetop does have a piece of glass on it here so that you can use it as a countertop as well as also having a countertop extension here. To release the countertop extension, you got to come underneath here and release this right here so that it can come down. Hope that was visible in the picture there. And there's a little bit of a magnet right there and a bump stop to keep it from making a lot of noise. Sorry for being out of frame, out of focus. Hope that makes sense. The lights in here are push lights, so you push them and you push them, turn them off. You have your light, which you can see there. And you also have a vent fan that runs on 12 volt for when you're cooking. Please use it. You'll notice that the microwave is pretty obviously not the microwave that was originally in here. That's the way I bought it, and if it's not broke, I'm not going to fix it. So we're going to leave that microwave in here for now. Works just fine. A little bit out of place there from being driven around, so that'll probably happen to you as well when you're using it. So you just put it back in place, make sure the wheel's back in place there like that, and then you can use it. So just be aware of that. Let's see, to get the glass out of the way here, you just pick it up, fold it up out of the way there. Kind of acts as a backsplash too, which is kind of nice. And then your stove kind of acts like a barbecue there. You turn the gas on, you use the striker, and it lights up. One thing to be aware of, just for your own sanity, is these little rubber knobs at the end of the grill there. These grills pick up and come out pretty easy. And these tend to fall off and disappear, but it keeps these things from rattling. And I always make sure that they've got ones in there, so that way it's as quiet as possible while driving, because let's face it, after driving for a few hundred miles, it can drive you insane. So just be aware that those are there, and that's what they're doing. If they're missing, it's usually not because I didn't put any in if they disappeared on me, but because they fell down. So if they fall down, you can just pick up the stovetop here. You can find all sorts of things in these things, but this is where you'll find the rubber stoppers. So if you want to go ahead and grab your stoppers and put them back so you don't have to listen to it, that's where you'll find them. Your oven here, most people aren't really familiar with pilot lights anymore these days. Let me see where we've got our guess this one doesn't have it in here right now, so I can't really show you. But when you want to use this thing, you set it for pilot. You push that in. You got to make sure it actually goes in when you push it. If it doesn't go in, it's not working. But while you're holding that in, you come down here. Let's see if I can get this refocus here. Not particularly. Okay. Well, I'll move my hand out of the way. But you see the lower pokey thing coming out of there? That's actually where the pilot light is. So you'd have to light that. It takes a couple of seconds to get gas down there. But once you do, that'll light a little blue flame. And you got to hold it there and let it stay lit for a few seconds while you're holding this button down here. And once you release it and the flame stays on, you can go ahead and you can set that to whatever temperature you want. It'll actually go through and light the rest of the strip here, and you can use it as an oven. You just want to make sure you get it back in the off position when you're done. Sorry, I just noticed something that was a little out of place here that I wanted to fix before I forgot that I needed to fix it. So, sorry about that. ADD, get distracted pretty easy. Down here we'll have your trash can. You know, you might find your toaster, your scrubbers, and some soap down here. Tea kettle. The coffee pot was left over here from a previous renter. We typically will not provide coffee pots for a couple reasons. Biggest one was because people would leave them on the countertops and drive off with coffee in them, and then when they broke them or when they caused damage to the motorhome, they blamed me for it. So I stopped providing coffee pots for that reason. Also because sometimes they can be a pain to clean, and let's face it, Walmart sells them for like 15-20 bucks, and it's easier that way. So up here you'll typically find your cups and your plates. We use plastic because excuse me, unfortunately glass breaks in motorhomes. You can't keep glass in a motorhome. It doesn't really work out. Up here we have your outdoor cab cover, and that goes on the corner of the outside of the window there, under the arm for the mirror, around the windshield underneath the wiper blades, back on this side under the mirror again, and to the top of the cab door here. And that'll black out your area there and also give you privacy for when you're walking around in the evening. Let's see. Pots and pans will typically be down in here. We wound up switching over to Teflon frying pans. I'm not a big fan of them, to be honest with you, but people were destroying the stainless steel, and so we gave them the cheaper Teflon ones. And you know, with the Teflon, you just got to make sure you don't put anything metal on them because it'll destroy them as well. So just something to be aware of. The fridge on here, when we give them to you, we will have them in the on position, and also the, man, I'm out of focus here, the auto position. And what that's going to wind up doing for you is when the auto is on, it will be running on whatever's available. Propane's the default. One, because it's always available, and two, because it actually runs better on propane than electric. But when you have the generator on, or when you have this thing plugged in, it'll default to running on electric. You'll notice that you have a gas button here that you can press, which turns off this light here. And it's still working just fine. It's just running on gas right now. If this check light lights up, that's when you know there's a problem. And then typically it's because you're out of propane. I'm going to leave that off for now because this thing still needs to be cleaned after the last rental. You have push locks right here that you press before opening. You'll notice that all the shelving's still in here. press to unlock. All the shelving's in here. The light does work, but the fridge is turned off right now. A couple things I like to point out in here is that, one, these trays are actually really expensive and easy to break. They're about $80 to $120 a piece. The refrigerators themselves are about $2,000 just for parts. That doesn't include labor. So please be gentle with them. It's perfectly normal to see moisture coming down this metal grate, and that is why this drip tray is here. This drip tray focuses that water into that hole back there, which goes into a tube that drains outside the motorhome to prevent it from causing water damage, and also to prevent it from dripping water all over your food and making your food soggy. So it's tempting to remove this to make more space, but it serves a very important function, so you'll want to leave that in there. The thermostatic control is actually this right here, and it's just a temperature probe on a piece of plastic that you can slide down to make it warmer in here and up to make it colder. So if your probe falls out or something while you're driving and you notice that thing dangling down here, your fridge is going to be too warm. You want to get that hooked back up and put back into place there. So that's everything I can tell you on the fridge. You know, we got overhead storage compartments across the top here. In your cabinet here, it's tempting to put heavy luggage in here, but there's no support in this 1/8" plywood or paneling floor, so you don't really want to put heavy weight in here. We typically will put the broom and dustpan in here because it's really tempting for people to set that behind the slide out, or over here behind the slide out when it's closed, and then forget about it, and then when they open it, it'll cause damage, so we don't put it there. Coat hangers, they work great in here as long as you actually have something on them. Otherwise, when you're driving, they'll be bouncing around driving you insane. So my suggestion would be to only have hangers that are in use, and if you're not using them, to take them down and set them somewhere else. That's just preference, obviously. Vanity storage right there, nothing fancy about that. Over here you have a water pump switch as well. To make sure I'm not lying to you. I'm lying to you. That's actually a separate on-off switch for the light here. Of course, you can leave that in the on position and just use that like a regular light too. Whatever you prefer. It does have a GFI protected 120 outlet here. To use these do need to be plugged in to outside power. Or to have the generator running. They do not have an inverter in here to run these without it. Water on off, perfectly normal function there, nothing fancy. Under sink storage here, nothing fancy there either. Do happen to have a couple of toilet kits in here. We don't always have those available. We usually don't provide toilet chemicals. These are actually kind of left over from my buddy that owned this before me. But my tanks are in so much use that they typically don't have any odor issues because they're constantly being filled and dumped also. It's just when you have them sitting for long times with stuff in them that they become problematic with odor. So, bedroom here does have a shade, but it is a tinted one, so it shouldn't bother you too much with light in the morning. A few different things over here. If you use a CPAP, we do have the adapter for that, or if you're at a campground and want to use the 120, you can do that as well. It's also got another cable hookup if we had a TV back here, but we don't. It does have a light switch right here for running the overhead light right there, so that way you don't have to use the push button on the light itself. If you find these lights don't work, try flipping the light switches and then trying to push them again, because you can get them in a position where they don't work because of that. So you do have a vent there for the air conditioning, which is really nice. You also have a vent right there for the air conditioning, and right there for the air conditioning, and over there for the air conditioning, and I believe, yep, there's one more back there on the bunk for the air conditioning as well. So your sleeping areas can all have good air conditioning. Your privacy curtain for back here extends out a little bit further, so this back area with the cabinetry for changing clothes, for the sink, for being in the bathroom and showering, gives you more privacy, and privacy for the bed area here, so that's kind of nice. You do got to be a little careful with these things when you're putting them together, just so they go back together properly. So just be patient with them. Get them lined back up. Get them stepped down for the storage. That way when you're traveling, they're not flying around and getting damaged. Your thermostatic control is all right here. I guess first of all, when you have it where none of these are lit up, it's actually in the off position. If you want your fan to work, you have to be plugged into 120, or you have to have the generator running, so that won't do anything right now. Same thing with the air conditioning, and you can set your temperature controls right here for that. Your furnace does run on the battery and on propane, and it will run on electric if you have it hooked up or have the generator going. And you can control the thermostat temperature right here. We'll just crank it up so that it'll turn on here. I'll give it a moment. Okay, I don't know if you can hear it in the video, but it just turned on. Furnace is behind that grate right there. That little round guy right there is where it's actually venting out. So you got a couple of those. You got one down here by the bed. Yeah, there's really not that many of them. I think there's probably one here in the bathroom too. Pretty typical. Yeah, you got one down there in the bathroom as well. So, little tip, if you need more hot air, if you're renting in late season or really early season on occasion, leave the bathroom door open. It'll allow more heat to come out in the main cab area. When you go to shut the furnace off, I'm going to turn the temperature back down to a more realistic temperature here. Yeah, that seems realistic. And then you can put it in the off position. These will go through a cool down cycle, so right now it's still running, just so that it can cool down. Hey, look at that. There's more of the kitchen stuff there. So that's where that's going to be hiding in this guy here. Gotta get that in frame so you can see what's actually in there. So that's where that stuff is. Let's see. Bed is, well, it's a bed. Not much to say about that. There's an emergency exit hatch right here. You can pull these red handles and push the window out. I prefer it if you don't use it, unless it's actually an emergency. It does have a regular slide with a shade on it. Sorry, with a screen on it. Also has the pull down shades as well. Overhead storage for lightweight things as well. Nothing too heavy, please. And let's see. Finally, we've got the bathroom back here. We do try to provide at least one roll of RV toilet paper. If you can't find RV toilet paper, try to find septic safe. If you can't find something that says septic safe, it's not going to be the end of the world, but that is why our black tanks typically misread, is because of use of incorrect toilet paper by previous renters. I'm not going to judge. So the toilets on these things, it's important that you always make sure there's water in it. The water helps create a seal. Most of my motorhomes don't have any odor control issues, as mentioned before, but having the water in the tank, or in the bowl here, will definitely make that less likely to be an issue. One thing I do like to point out is that when you have these sky vents open while driving, it's designed to create suction. Unfortunately, the only thing in here that's vented is the toilet tank. So if you drive with that open, and this seal is anything but brand new and perfect, even with the water in there, the suction will suck the air through the toilet, and if there's anything in there, you'll know, because it'll stink the place up. So not only that, but the sky vents here, the lids, they tend to blow off when they're driven with them open, so you really want to make sure those are shut. There's a vent fan in here as well with an on-off switch. Works great for humidity and for odor control as well when you're stationary. This particular toilet is a foot flush toilet, and there's a little foot flusher there. So for a full flush, you press and hold all the way. You'll notice that it will automatically put water back in the toilet bowl. If you want to fill that higher, you just lightly press the toilet, flush, and it will change your water level to wherever you desire. And then when you want to flush, you can full flush. So there's that for you. Your shower door here does have a little lock tab on it here, kind of hard to see. But when you're traveling, you want to make sure that's engaged so that the shower door doesn't slam open and either break or cause some other issues. But you can very gently slide that guy over, and it'll open up there. And beyond that, it's a regular shower. You got your on-offs for your hot and cold. You do have an on-off pause lever up top here to help conserve water. You do have your skylight here for people like me that are 6 foot plus. Your head will be up in there, but at least you can stand up. This guy here is to access the plumbing, so you don't have to worry about messing with that. So please leave that shut. We don't want any water getting inside of there. If your gray tank is overfilling, you'll notice it in manifestations of water not draining out of the shower or water coming up out of the shower drain. That can be kind of gross, so you want to keep an eye on your gray tanks. My general rule of thumb is if you have to fill up your fresh water, you need to dump your gray water. It may not be overfilled yet, but it will be shortly. I think that's about everything I can mention on the motorhome here. A couple of driving tips for motorhomes in general. You're going to need about 13 feet of clearance to clear this thing. More would be better. Most places in Alaska are perfectly fine for that. The arrivals area at the airport is too shallow. You will not fit underneath there, so please do not go there. If you do need to pick somebody up, you must be in the left lane, and you must turn off at the commercial turnout before you go into the bridge. Other than that, you just need to stay out of the drive-thrus for any car washes, any drive-thrus for fast food. Don't drive into any garages whatsoever. That is extremely high risk and can cause extreme amounts of damage very easily. The other thing you want to make sure of is that you swing wide, so that these tires do not rub on the sidewalks, and so that the low points here don't make contact with sidewalks, or that these tires don't come off of the roadway a little bit and dip down so that you make contact with the frame on the pavement. That would cause quite a bit of damage pretty quick too. You'll notice that there are some scuff marks on here, and that's not necessarily from what I'm about to explain, but it's a good example of it. But if you're at a gas station and you got those concrete pillars sitting here, and you start to pull out and you start turning to the left, what's going to happen is this big back end is going to swing over quite a way, and it's going to make contact. It's going to cause damage. You know, you'll see that right there. You know, there's a little bit there from stuff like that happening. Not bad on this one, thankfully. But that's something you got to pay attention to. You got to pull straight out, and you got to turn in such a way where your back end's not hitting something, whether it be a car parked next to you in a parking lot, or at the gas station, or a concrete pillar when you're getting propane or when you're filling up with fuel. Backing up's another thing. You want to make sure that you're not backing over anything. I've had people poke holes in my gas tanks because the gas tanks sit behind the rear axle here, and it's kind of a low point. So you want to be aware of not backing up over anything, not backing up over any concrete blocks, and leaving your back end go over the back of them. Those are designed for cars. They're not designed for motorhomes to park in. So try to find better places to park than that. Other than that, you know, there's no ladder on here. I don't really want people going up on my roofs. And they're rubber membranes. They're very easy to damage. So, you know, I use a ladder and I go up there and I take pre and post trip photos. If you think you hit anything with it, please let me know right away. An ounce of prevention there when it comes to water damage can save quite a bit of money on repairs. So that's in everybody's best interest for that to be disclosed, because it will be discovered at one point or another. I think that's about everything we can say on this thing here. If you have any questions after watching this video, please feel free to contact me. If you want to look up any specific specifications on here, it's a 2016 Forest River Sunseeker 2290S. Google search will pull up a quick spec page on that and give you the floor layout, height, dimensions, weights, anything like that if you're trying to use the ferry system or anything like that. So I think that's everything. So hope you found this informative. And if you have any questions, like I said, you've got my cell phone number by now, and feel free to contact me anytime. Thank you.